This video's made for adult collectors because he's like a fat ballerina.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear that the thoughts build up until I can't hear, that my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I've been feeling weird, I can't seem to focus good enough. Nothing's really clear, sometimes it could be a little tough. I just need to feel like the end's in sight for me, but let's be really real, anxiety can foggy all this stuff.
Hound was probably one of the best parts of the whole Night duology, and that reflected very hard in his toys. He had some bangers, like even the one-step changes were nice. But how come this hasn't been touched in Studio Series? Here's hoping that perhaps in the next year or two, now that they're doing more of the post-Dark of the Moon characters, we get a new Hound. That being said though, if you want a Hound now, this ain't that bad at all. I've technically made a video on this like 6 years ago, but that's a shit ass video, so let's do a proper one. This toy does some seriously cool engineering things, but is extremely lacking in color. And that's a last night thing, is there's no color. That's color with a U. That was the one thing the last night did a lot, was it had some banger Voyagers, but only seemed to like put paint on one of them, and that was Scorn. So glad that isn't the case now. He isn't without some paint though. His vest, his bullet arms, and bits of the legs are painted up, which does look nice, and it is very durable paint. Like nothing's chipped off, and I've messed with this a lot since I got it back when it came out. Speaking of paint though, bruh, that face, it's rough. His bullet beard looks like it came from a toy I'd find at a flea market, and I think it's just the bits of silver poking through. I think if it was all black, it would have been a bit better. I get the effect they're going for, though. They wanted all the individual hairs to be defined and painted, but it doesn't work super well for me. The silver you can see is weird, but the helmet is removable, so 10 out of 10 best head sculpt ever. He does have his chunk factor, which is something the old Age of Extinction toy was very sorely missing, and the lower legs, okay, the lower legs are a bit of a mess, and I'm not the biggest fan of the kibble arrangement on them, but the feet do something extremely cool to form and stay in place. So these are the actual alt mode tires, but they don't freely spin, they ratchet. The way they make this work is when in alt mode they spin freely, but once you fold them down, there's this little black part that pushes out, causing the smaller black part to push and press in a tooth onto the ratchet on the wheels, and that stops it from freely spinning and makes the feet. It is such a simple yet ingenious way of making all of that work, and I adore that feature. It does, however, mean he's got some flat ass feet though. He does come with weapons. Yeah, I've lost one of the smaller guns, but I also don't like these at all. The Age of Extinction ones comes with like a much better arsenal. The movie The Best One comes with all the Age of Extinction guns and the proper tarp on the back, but eh. So being a last night Voyager, Hound actually has a surprising amount of articulation. Like, he has every single point you would expect on a modern toy, which is insane. However, the way that his legs and his feet work do make it a bit awkward at times, especially these toes, and I'll talk about that when I get there. But the head can rotate. It can only go about that far left and right due to the beard, but you can look up a little bit and you can't really look down. Again, the beard does get in the way, but you can tilt it. Shoulders can rotate. They could do a full 360, though the backpack, remove that. The backpack does get in the way. They can go in and out. The missiles can spin. They're technically supposed to be in the front, but that kind of blocks the elbow joint a little bit, so I just sort of leave them off to the side. Because in the movie, they sort of like spun around his whole arm, at least from what I recall. He does have double jointed elbows, and as you can see, this panel really likes to just unpeg. And then the wrists, these like to just unpeg as well. They do soft click in. I don't think you can hear that. Hang on. Yeah, you probably can't hear that, but they do soft click in, but they do also like to come out quite a bit, especially when you have a thing in the hand. It kind of knocks it out a bit easier. He does have a, oh my good lord, he does have a wrist joint. There we go. You do have, Jesus pose, a ratcheted waist joint. It only goes about that far each way because then this bangs into it, but like, how much more do you need, right? He's Hound. You're not going to get him doing a high twisting roundhouse kick. The hip skirt is one solid piece that goes forward. Legs can go forward about that far. They can go back that far. They can go in and out about that far, unless you want to like twist the hip and the thigh a little bit. Then it moves out of the way. You do have thigh rotation, though this part does start banging into things, as you can see here. It starts to like push the hip skirt up. You do have just a little under 90 degrees of bend at the knee due to how all this kibble is oriented. which is kind of annoying. It doesn't shift any other way. It's just like there, and it's riveted in and pinned in. You could unscrew the entire leg to remove that if you wanted to get rid of it, but then you wouldn't be able to transform it. Now the feet, he does have an ankle tilt, which is very nice, and a foot rotation. And even though they put those ratchets in there, it's still a little bit loose. So the feet do spin quite often, and the toes, they're on hinges, right? So they can go forward. You do have a toe bend, but because of that, he can lean sometimes, either forward or backwards, and he does wobble a little bit. Coupled with the fact that, as you saw there, he doesn't have any heels. So he can be a little bit awkward to stand. You kind of have to stand him like this, where he's swooping in an S that way, and he doesn't look like Hound because he never did that in the film. He was chunky, he was solid. You could just put him there and call it a day. But here, it just kind of struggles a little bit with those feet. It's not horrible, and you can get him to stand. And as you saw in the video, you can pose him and get him in poses quite well. But here, it does present a tiny bit of an issue. So all in all, even with the lack of paint and the weird leg stuff, it's still a solid feeling and looking toy. Now let's make him a truck thingy. So his transformation is quite interesting and extremely different from that original toy. Like, this shares nothing from the original toy, who is right here. This is the DVD one. But yeah, these are completely different toys. So if you ever wanted like an Age of Extinction and a Last Night Hound, and you couldn't pick between the two because you want one representation, if you collect like that, I can see a lot of people feeling not feeling bad about owning both, because they're both very different toys. Anyways, to get started with him, the first thing you want to do is pull up. Pull his entire torso up, fold his head in. Then we're going to take this hinge section, fold it down. Then the arms do a lot of interesting flips that are out of focus. There we go. They do a lot of interesting flips to sort of just get all of this stuff oriented properly, and then you rotate that all the way down like so, and that's pretty much an arm. Now, one cool thing is this panel clips into here, right? But there's no tabs. So how does it do that? Well, this piece right here actually sits inside that bit of structure right there, and it clicks into place, keeping the shoulder in where it's supposed to be. That's a really cool way of, like, this dude's just so clever in a lot of areas, that, and like in his conversion, it's so interesting. Just get the arm flat like that. Gonna quickly do the same on this side here. There we go. Then I just like to bring these down now and flip them in. Now, one thing to note, when you're bringing these panels down, you hear that click, right? That's because the tire is pushing past this peg here, and the tires are painted. I kind of worry about the longevity of that paint, and how, like, I just took a little bit of it off there actually. Like, it feels strange, and you can't really cut these tabs off because they're necessary for that. So you might want to be careful when transforming this guy, because you might scratch the paint on his wheels. Granted, the wheels are supposed to look like they're just covered in dirt, and I guess some chipping will make it look a bit more realistic, but eh. Now the feet. Fold up the tires, bring this section just up, fold this back, like so, get the wheel arches in place. There we are. Now fold this down, bring this up, and that frees up the wheel, like I said earlier, and then that just sort of collapses in. It doesn't peg in, it just collapses, but the hinges are strong enough to keep it in place, and they're on screws, so you can tighten it very easily if it's not. Then you want to peg this entire front section together, get that Mercedes logo all nice and squeezed, and then just bring this back, clip it into place. Then the arms just sort of tuck into here. Now, one thing I will advise you do is open the hip skirt first, so you can get into this area here. That allows you to feed everything in. It's a little difficult to do when you first get it. And just don't peg that in just yet. And then just do the same on this side here. Just sort of slide it off, feed everything in, peg the roof together, close it up, close up the hip skirt, and that's Hound. And then if you want, you can take the guns, peg them together in their proper orientation. And because I am missing one, that's just gonna go on the top there, like that, out of focus, but whatever. You plug it into the back. There you have concept art Hound in alt mode. He turns into an inaccurate truck. Yeah, the truck in the film didn't have all the guns on the back. Or did it? There's a scene right here where for a second you do see the original Last Night Hound design with the guns on the back. So that's interesting. I mean, nothing about the film makes sense anyway, so I'm not going to try and make sense of that shot. But Hound here looks great in truck mode. The painted dirt on the tires, they gave him a kill count that's way too small because I swear he killed this many bots at the start of Age of Extinction's final battle, but hey, it's whatever they could fit on the door. It's still a cool inclusion. I really like how dense this truck feels and how mean it looks. I also like how the outer roll cage frame thing is consistently painted. There's no missed spots like on the Age of Extinction one, which is great to see. And the turret can rotate because it's on 5mm peg, and it can go up and down as well and fall apart sometimes, but this is just the nature of the 5mm peg system. The movie The Best One gave him that cover, which is cool, but they didn't paint it. It's so weird. I don't understand why it's such a deep green. Whose decision was that? But I do recommend this, or the movie The Best One. I'm not sure when the SS1 will see the light of day, but I'd assume in the next couple years because the post-night design toys do take a lot longer to make, according to the designers, so. But as a stand-in till whenever that one comes out, this fits quite well in a Studio Series collection. I actually put it in my Studio Series collection. And I do recommend it for like 40 bucks or less, maybe 60 bucks or less if you're going for the movie The Best One, sealed that is. And that's my look at the Last Night Voyager class Hound. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.